Welcome, everybody, to the very first episode of the Transgender Plan, your go-to podcast for transgender history. I am your host, Mari, and today's episode technically isn't about a moment of transgender history. It's actually going to be about me, and not to say that in like a cocky way, of course, but more in a way of where I want you all as listeners to feel confident in the host of a podcast this serious, in my opinion. For you, this might be educational, which is also a very, very big thing for me from an ethnic standpoint, and also too as well, just ensuring accurate information. So I want to give you all a little bit more of a comfortability with me. So I'm going to give you all a little bit of background about who I am, what I do, how I kind of got into this. And of course, like I said, just give you a little bit more comfortability moving forward as it relates to running this podcast. So to get into it, my name is Amari McGee. People call me Mari for short. Both work, perfectly fine for me, honestly. I am a 25-year-old Black transgender man who currently resides in the city of Atlanta, Georgia. I have been out since I was 18, which was back in the year of 2016. And I started my transition from female to male in the year of 2019, 2020-ish time frame. It's kind of late 2019. I have currently been on hormone replacement therapy since the year of 2019. Recently got my top surgery back in the year 21. And I can say that I have been proudly living as a Black transgender man since then. A lot of people like to ask me, how does your family feel about you transitioning and stuff like that? My family are my biggest supporters of my transition. Both my parents have showcased to me a love that is, I don't really know the best word to describe it, but it's a good feeling, of course, that it makes me proud to be who I am every single day, to be proud of my work, to be proud of helping others that are like me as well. And without my family, I don't think that I would be as happy as I am today. Shockingly, my grandmothers, both of them, actually kind of paved the way for what I do today. And for those who don't know me, I currently right now have my degree in information technology. I went to college for IT. I currently work full time as a app developer and consultant during the day. But outside of that, I am a advocate for the LGBTQ plus community with a specialization in the transgender community. So outside of my daily life of 9 to 5, I am a professional speaker, consultant, focusing strictly on LGBTQ plus education, specialization in transgender education as well, of course. I'm a nonprofit founder, inspired by my family, called To Better Understand, which is a educational based nonprofit that helps parents, guardians, friends, allies get a better understanding of the LGBTQ plus community. And now I am a slight content creator, I guess you could say. The content creator for me is a very wonky terminology. Not really a huge fan of the word, but now I do this, which is really just more of like the education. So I'm an educator also, and teaching people about transgender history. So that's what I do for my daily life. And it has been a blast since then. I've been doing this now for about 7 years. from personal stories or histories, research for the entire nine. And I'm currently right now going back to school to get my master's in social justice and human rights. Hopefully in the future, cross my fingers, that I can get my PhD in gender and sexuality studies and move forward. So right now, taking one small step with my master's in social justice and human rights. Hopefully within the next year or two, I can get that PhD and go mile high with that one there. A lot of people like to ask me kind of how I got inspired to get involved in learning more about transgender education and history in the community. And like I said, my grandmother from my dad's side has been the biggest influence, and I can even say my mother as well. They both were not really, I'm not going to say adamant, but I think they realized how important it was for me to spread my message of love and care and empathy to someone who was like me. I personally, when I first came out, had to learn everything about the LGBTQ plus community, which is really why I know so much that I do today. And also too from like personal experiences as well. But with that, I was able to teach them a lot. And I think that they took that and realized how indulged I was with the community and how much I want to know about really more of why are people so against, being queer, right? And since I had that question in my head, I think that sparked a new version of myself that my parents and my family loved so much. And they felt that it was necessary for me not only to be an educator, but also, like I said, found a nonprofit, get that established to help others just like them. So I've helped, I'll probably say over 100 to 200 transgender individuals, majority transgender men, navigate the transitions through my lifetime of 7 years. I've helped family members of other individuals who had transitioned or part of the LGBTQ plus community as a whole, at least, be better parents or guardians or even allies to their family, which is the biggest blessing in my opinion out of all of that. And I feel as though my family being my biggest cheerleaders and being proud of all the work that I do today is extremely huge, if you ask me. It really gets me going. It really wakes me up in the morning, and it makes me really think about everything that I do and how can I be better the next day. So with that, I know you all might be wondering kind of like a little bit of what's my coming out story. So my coming out story technically isn't bad. I don't really think it's that interesting, but I'll be happy to share, of course, because this is a podcast where you got to get to know me. I came out back, like I said, in the year 2018. I remember initially coming out to my uncle, which is my dad's youngest brother, and his wife at the time. And I let them know, like, hey, I'm gay. I don't really know how to tell my dad. Because my dad is a very laid back, very quiet guy. So I can't really gauge how he feels on certain things. So it's kind of hard to see. So I'm an only child too. So it's not like we had this, before. My family, from both sides, myself and someone else that isn't around too much are the only members of the community. So there's another thing. So it's not like we prepped this ahead of time. It's something now. I'm the first, and we got to figure out how we're gonna get this rolling. So I came out to them, and I remember them telling me, like, hey, Mari, like, we're not really sure how your dad's going to be, but if he isn't, 100% on board, you can, we'll be here to support you, basically. And I remember hearing that, and I was just kind of like in awe, I think, because my family are very lovable people. I'm a very family oriented man. And to hear my uncle and aunt kind of be like, look, if you don't have nobody else, you got us. Before I came out to my parents and everything was really all the motivation that I needed. But, with time, of course, I came out to my mom, which was probably about a couple of months later. We were in Alabama at my great grandmother's house, and we were in a car. I remember it's me, my mom, and my cousin. We're all in there. And I remember telling like, hey mom, and I'm driving the car, by the way. I'm like, hey mom, I think well, I didn't say I think. That's kind of the story my dad told my mom I'm dating this girl. And funny enough, she guessed exactly who the girl was, which I wasn't surprised by, honestly. And I was like, yeah, how did you figure? She was like, I know, mother knows that. And I remember her telling me that she loved me no matter what. And that me basically being gay at the time, of course, was not something that she would not love me, for. She loved me as I am. Which I kind of tore my heart up, not in a bad way, in a good way. And like I said, the more motivation, the better. And I slowly ended up coming out more and more to my family. My dad, he was very surprised. It's funny because if you know me personally, you know how my dad is. So me and my dad are the exact same for those who don't know. So literally a spinning image of that man, and I act literally just like him. So I'm surprised he said he was surprised, but he came around, of course. And coming out twice as trans, of course, is a little bit of a difficult conversation. My mom wasn't upset about it. I think she was just very curious. And I think that curiosity led me down the path of doing podcasts like this, becoming an educator too as well. Because we were both kind of going in. I won't say I went in blind. I had a little bit more knowledge, but she definitely was. And I wanted to give her comfort with this transition. I wanted to provide her with all the facts, medical, whatever she needed to know, so that moving forward with this, she doesn't feel as though what I'm doing, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life. That was one of her concerns, of course, like most parents probably would. But every time she would ask me a question, I would have an answer. And I would also say, hey, mom, if I do this, this is what's going to happen. This is the pros and the cons. But I want you to know that the pros outweighs the cons, So I'm backing everything up to my mom. Like, once the transition happens, I don't know what's going to happen, but I can tell you right now, I think it's going to make me a better person. And if you ask her today, she will absolutely say that that is true. She might have had a little bit of some concerns, but today, I think she's 1000% proud of the man that I became, and how much I have grown and how much I have a smile on my face with what I do today. Same thing goes for all of my family members if you ask them to be completely honest. So that's a little bit like my coming out, my family, and kind of how they come into play, of course. As I said, really this podcast is just taking what I've learned over the years. And like I said, a lot of what I learned and how I became very indulged in LGBTQ plus history was from going to an event here in Atlanta. And it was really just more about just learning more about history. I can't remember the actual location, but it's downtown Atlanta. It's like a museum. And I ran into a flyer somewhere. And when I ran into that flyer, it was like, hey, you learn more about transgender history, might be something that you're interested in. So I went really just going with an open mind and a notebook at the time. And I ended up running into my now my volunteer lead, for a project that I'm currently working on. And she was telling me more about the rich history, you know. And with that, I told myself, like, hey, maybe I might want to get into this a little bit more. And with that journey came me going to the library every day, looking at scholarly articles, reading books, the whole thing from the year of 2019 to today's time. So it's been a very long time of doing this. I'm a very reliable and credible man when it comes to anything that I'd like to showcase to people. I don't do the whole opinion thing and try to just say this is what's right. I try to back my stuff up with facts. So this podcast is going to be exactly that as well. So if it's your first time listening, do not fear that what I'm going to provide to you is going to be inaccurate. I make sure that I do my best to include all accurate information in this podcast. So, anything about me, I'm a very big ethnic guy and credibility. So I want to make sure that that's all noted before you proceed with the translation plan. But I can tell you right now, I'm going to make sure that I give you guys some amazing content here. Knowing me, and like I said, just making sure that you are a little bit more comfortable with knowing who I am and what I do and how long I've been doing this for. Like I said, I'm just going to make sure that you all have a good time. So that's a little bit more about me. And it's kind of like a high level, of course. But if you want to hear more about my story from childhood till current times, you can actually go to the Georgia State University. There is a project that I'm currently working on called the Georgia Transgender Oral History Project. And I have my archive there for my oral history that you can access at any time. I believe it's also accessible on the web as well. If you want to learn a little bit more about my childhood from birth till current times today, that I couldn't be able to fit in this now about to soon be 18-minute podcast episode. But check that out if you want to learn more about me. You can also follow me as well on social media. My Instagram and Twitter is at mariiiwrld. That is MAR3IWRLD. And I really just hope that you all enjoy this podcast, to be honest. I'm excited about it. I have had this idea in my mind for a very long time. It's just making sure that I put it into fruition moving forward, So enjoy it. If you have any questions for me, you can happily DM me or email me at any time. And please stay tuned for amazing upcoming episodes moving forward in the years to come, technically. With that, I thank you all for listening to the very first episode, meeting me along the way, and I hope to see you all back here real soon. So have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all later.